Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World, and here are the top headlines. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth has confirmed that US forces have struck another alleged drug trafficking boat in the Caribbean, killing 3 and raising the total death toll from the campaign to at least 70. The strike was carried out in international waters and targeted a vessel linked to a designated terrorist organization. The Trump administration has announced that it would begin negotiations with China over its dominance in shipbuilding and ocean logistics while pausing US port fees on China-linked vessels for 1 year. The move, formalized by the US Trade Representative's Office, also invites public comments in early November. US President Donald Trump has announced that an international stabilization force for Gaza would be deployed very soon as part of his peace plan. The US has drafted a UN Security Council resolution authorizing a 2-year mandate for transitional governance in Gaza and the ISF, which could use all necessary measures to fulfill its mission. Chinese Vice Premier Deng Xuexiang has urged world leaders to remove trade barriers and promote the free flow of green products to combat climate change. His remarks come as China, a major producer of solar panels, batteries and EVs, faces high US tariffs on its clean energy imports. The White House has reportedly blocked NVIDIA from selling its newly developed scaled-down B30A AI chips to China. The chip, capable of training large language models and clustered systems, had already been sampled by several Chinese firms before the decision. According to Afghan officials, at least 5 Afghan civilians were killed and 6 injured in cross-border firing at the Chaman-Spin-Boltak border, while Pakistan has reported no casualties. Both nations have exchanged blame, with Kabul accusing Pakistan of opening fire and Islamabad insisting that the shots were fired from the Afghan side first. The death toll from Typhoon Kalmegi in the Philippines has risen to 188, with most fatalities reported in Cebu. Authorities have stated that 135 people remain missing and 96 injured, though the figures are still being verified. Tesla shareholders approve Elon Musk's nearly $1 trillion pay plan with 75% support, linking payouts to market capitalization, profits, vehicle deliveries, FSD subscriptions, and robo-production. Musk's ownership would rise from 13% to 25%, boosting his voting power. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. The US military has now announced that it has struck a suspected drug vessel in international waters in the Caribbean Sea, killing 3 people. The military action was the latest of more than a dozen US strikes since September on vessels near the Venezuelan coast and more recently in the Eastern Pacific Ocean that have killed more than 60 people. Hegseth has now, in fact, informed that the vessel was operated by a designated terrorist organization but provided no further information. His post included a 20-second video clip marked unclassified of a boat in the water that gets struck by ammunition and explodes. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Ross Feingold, political analyst, joining us from Taipei in Taiwan. Thank you so much for taking our time and joining us on NewsX World today. Yet another strike has taken place in this very critical operation. The United States, of course, looking at reducing the amount of drugs that flow in from countries, particularly in Latin America. We're now learning that with this latest strike, the death toll has risen to 70. Secretary Hegseth has in fact released footage of the strike. We can see the boat being set on fire over there. I wanted to understand from you, there are a lot of analysts that have criticized the US's action, stating that this is just an ostensible motive for targeting these drug traffickers, and there is more at play over here as well. This, of course, they've pointed out to Donald Trump's statements authorizing CIA operations. They've stated that the US is trying to carry out a regime change in Venezuela, although the United States has publicly denied wanting to do so. What, in your assessment, is happening? Do you concur with what these analysts have had to say, or do you have a counterpoint to make?
I think the key point at the moment is that the Trump administration, President Trump himself, his Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and other national security officials, such as Secretary of State / National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, they're fully on board with proceeding with these attacks on boats that are transporting drugs from Latin America into the United States. So, whatever international criticism or domestic criticism, and certainly there is domestic criticism in the United States, including by Democratic members of Congress and a small number of Republican members of Congress. But again, the key point here is that the administration believes this is a necessary measure. They believe they have the legal justification as well. And they're going to continue doing this. How long? We don't know. But you mentioned that this began in September, so now it's over 6 weeks. And the tempo continues, and arguably it's going to increase. So we're going to see several of these hits a week, most likely. And that's the plan for the Trump administration. And I think at some point they will have to demonstrate to the American public in more detail why they are doing this and why it is working, why it's successful. With regard to Venezuela and the possibility of regime change, that's getting a lot of speculation at the moment, but we do have to keep in mind that the Trump administration has been very clear, mostly when talking about the Middle East, but I think broadly around the world as well, that they're not in the business of regime change. So they might implement a very wide range of actions to put pressure on the Maduro regime in Venezuela. But is the United States actually going to support an armed rebellion or send troops ashore to fight on the ground? As of now, I would say that remains highly unlikely.
That's something even Donald Trump has pointed out. He has ruled out sending boots on the ground. I requested to stay on with us. You've spoken, of course, about criticism within the United States of America as well. We're now learning that U.S. Senate Republicans have in fact blocked a resolution that would have prevented President Trump from attacking Venezuela without congressional authorization. This comes a day after administration officials told lawmakers that Washington is not currently planning strikes on Venezuelan territory. The Senate voted 51 to 49, largely along party lines, against a measure that would have brought the war powers resolution, up for a vote. Only two of Trump's fellow Republicans joined Democrats in backing the measure and show of the party's support for Trump's military buildup in the southern Caribbean after 2 months of deadly strikes against boats of Venezuela. Now, the Trump administration says that since early September, U.S. forces have launched at least 17 strikes against such vessels in the Pacific and southern Caribbean, killing about 70 people. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Ross Feingold. Interesting numbers coming in, 51 to 49. We do know that the Republicans hold 53 seats, which has made the math very obvious that 2 Republicans voted against the party line. But all in all, if we look at this vote, this has in fact highlighted the sort of, the fact that this has taken place on partisan lines. The vote has occurred on partisan lines. How do you read into the stance of the Democrats?
One interesting thing about this vote is everybody showed up on both sides. All the Republicans and all the Democrats showed up, and that doesn't happen all the time. So it's an indication of how serious members of the United States Senate take this issue, and the Democrats looking to pass something to oppose the policy of the Trump administration. That resulted in all the Republicans showing up because they knew the Democrats were all going to show up to vote against the Trump administration. But it's clear that only a small minority, very small, only 2 Republicans voted with the Democrats. So most Republicans support this policy, and even if they have concerns about the policy, they're still going to give the administration an enormous amount of leeway when it comes to foreign policy and protecting the United States from drugs that are coming in from overseas. It's not an issue that Republicans are going to go to battle with the White House over, and we saw that with the result of the vote.
Indeed, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us. There are some other very critical developments we're tracking from within the United States of America. We're now learning that US President Donald Trump has issued a statement that his administration needs a Game 2 plan in case the US Supreme Court rules against the legality of his sweeping tariff policy. He's warned that an unfavorable ruling would be devastating for the country. This comes as the US Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments in a case that challenges the US President's authority to unilaterally impose a wide-ranging tariffs under a 1977 law that was intended for national emergencies. There have been debates in the United States signaling potential limits on executive power in trade matters. It's of course the US Congress that is authorized to pass resolutions on tariffs. Nevertheless, President Trump's position remains the same on the issue, and his lawyers have been arguing that the Constitution's Commerce Clause is complemented by the emergency law. Listen in to what Donald Trump had to say.
We thought we did very well yesterday. We hope that we did. I think it would be devastating for our country, but I also think that we'll have to develop a Game 2 plan. We'll see what happens. Most people tell me we did very well legally.
Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Ross Feingold. Interesting case. This has been shaping up for quite a while. There have been federal courts earlier that have ruled against Trump and his tariff policies. Now, of course, we do know that the Supreme Court has a 6-3 conservative majority. 6 of the judges have been appointed by Republican presidents, 3 by Democrats. How do you think the Supreme Court, will it vote on this particular line, or will it consider the arguments that have been made as far as the interpretation of the Constitution is concerned?
The questions from some of the conservative judges indicate that they have skepticism over the Trump administration's interpretation of the law. Some of the questions were extremely tough, and many people are starting to speculate that there could be at least 2 of the conservative judges will vote with the 3 liberal judges and invalidate the policy of the Trump administration, and specifically the Trump administration's interpretation of a section of a law that the Trump administration has cited as the legal basis for the tariffs that have been implemented this year. But I think it's very important to keep in mind, and this is what Trump was talking about when he said we need to have another plan, a plan B, a second plan. The administration will find other legal bases to impose higher tariffs. There are other U.S. laws and sections within laws that the administration could potentially cite as the legal basis for higher tariffs. So if the Supreme Court eventually does rule against the administration, I think we're not going to see an immediate reduction in tariffs. We're going to see the administration cite other sections of the law. And if the administration does that, then we'll be right back where we started, because people who oppose the policy will have to go back to the courts and get a ruling that the new citation is also incorrect. And also, the Trump administration is going to argue that we've reached these bilateral agreements with other countries. They've agreed to pay these tariff rates. So how could the courts tell us that we can't reach those agreements with other countries to collect tariffs at the rates that those countries have agreed to pay? So the Trump administration does not want to lose this case, but they definitely have a backup plan, and the likelihood of these tariffs going away is very small.
Indeed. And what else, if they do go away, and if the Trump administration will take recourse to something else, if SCOTUS rules against it, there will be an interim period in between when the tariffs will be null and void. What do you think would then happen?
Again, I think the likelihood of the tariffs being null and void is very small, because the Trump administration will find other legal bases to impose these higher tariffs. But one issue that is also getting a lot of focus, and the Supreme Court justices ask questions about this, is if they invalidate the tariffs that have been collected over the past few months, will the people who paid the tariffs, which is the importers, will they be entitled to refunds, and how would that be processed, because it involves billions of dollars, and we just don't know how the justices will rule on that. And again, that's assuming there is a majority that invalidates the tariffs. So certainly one thing to watch when the justices eventually rule is, will there be a refund of tariffs that have been paid?
All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to more updates coming in. US President Donald Trump has hosted leaders from 5 Central Asian nations at the White House on the 6th of November, emphasizing critical minerals as a key priority. The meeting has included representatives from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan as the United States seeks to expand its influence in the resource-rich region, traditionally dominated by Russia and increasingly being courted by China as well. Listen in to what the Central Asian leaders have had to say.
You are the great leader, statesman, sent by heaven to bring common sense and traditions that we all share and value back into the United States policy, either domestic or foreign. Therefore, millions of people in so many countries are so grateful to you.
Уважаемый господин Трамп, мы высоко ценим ваш личный вклад в обновление перезагрузки C5+1. На самом деле, до этого ни один президент Америки так не относился к Центральной Азии. Мы очень, я лично и все мои коллеги очень благодарны. Мы на самом деле почувствовали вот такое внимание с вашей стороны. И это...
Và một duyum intikal diyanda diyor ki ba Amerika devlet yasayım ki این نمودی معدنی کریتیکا را وای میکند. امکانیت ها خیلی فراوان هستند. ما آماده همکاری هستیم. بعضی هم مسئله های امنیتی است که با ما صحبت را ادامه میدیم. با شما من سلامتی میخواهم. برای کار موفقیت. سلامت باشید.
Biz бұл қадамды жоғары бағалаймыз. Жана AQSh-нын Борбордук Азияга болгон ак ниеттүүлүгүнүн далили катары кабыл алабыз. Биздин биргелешкен аракеттерибиз конкреттүү жыйынтыктарга, өлкөлөрүбүзгө өз ара пайда алып келерине мен толук ишенемин. Көңүл бурганыңыздар үчүн рахмат.
Уверен, что принятые решения в рамках сегодняшнего саммита также будут способствовать дальнейшему расширению и углублению многостороннего сотрудничества между государствами Центральной Азии и Соединенными Штатами Америки. Уважаемый господин президент, еще раз большое спасибо за теплый прием и гостеприимство. Спасибо большое.
Meanwhile, Trump has highlighted efforts to strengthen U.S. supply chains through global agreements, stating that the United States is working to diversify supply chains away from Moscow and Beijing. The C5+1 platform, launched in 2015, fosters cooperation between the United States and Central Asia on the economic front, energy and security matters as well. Trump has also announced that Kazakhstan has officially joined the Abraham Accords, marking a crucial step in the region's diplomatic shift. Listen in to what Trump had to say.
Very distinguished people, I've just completed a series of outstanding bilateral meetings with these leaders in the Oval Office to discuss our ties with this very important part of the universe. We're strengthening our economic partnerships, improving our security cooperation, and expanding our overall bonds. Tremendous amounts of trade was done just in the last little while. Lots of great products, military products and otherwise, are being bought from the United States. One of the key items on our agenda is critical minerals. In recent weeks, my administration has strengthened American economic security by forging agreements with allies and friends across the world to broaden our critical mineral supply chains. We had a great relationship and a great meeting with President Xi of China.
Joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Robinder Sachdev, author of Trumpetopia and an international affairs expert from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. As we know, the Central Asian nations are resource rich, whether it is critical minerals or natural gas. The Central Asian region has traditionally been Russia's backyard. We've seen China trying to court these countries as well through the Belt and Road Initiative. But of course, the key point of focus at the moment is Donald Trump speaking about supply chains. We have seen China impose restrictions on its own critical minerals, and we've seen tensions simmering between Washington and Beijing with regards to this. Then do you see this particular meeting and what's transpired as an attempt by the United States of America to diversify where it receives these critical minerals that it then uses to manufacture its defense equipment and important tech equipment as well?
Thank you so much. Oh, absolutely, yes. Central Asia is rich in natural resources. And as you mentioned, not only critical earths and rare earths or critical minerals, etc., oil and gas, gold, for example, uranium. Kazakhstan is the world's largest deposits of uranium. Tajikistan, these are unexplored areas, immensely rich, one. Secondly, they are, sandwiched between Russia on the one side, and they were all part of Russia, right? And on the other hand, China. And no doubt China has made huge inroads in these countries through trade and various, exchanges, including the BRI projects. Now, that said, these countries are landlocked. Okay, so on the one hand, there's Russia, on the other hand, China. Both of them are competing for influence out there. And the other side is, Iran, Afghanistan, which are also kind of, different nature of countries. Now, that said, Trump is on a worldwide hunt, you could say, for critical minerals and rare earths. If we were to look what Trump has been doing over the past few months, he has zeroed down, apart from his issue of tariffs and other aspects and trying to keep the oil prices low and all, he has zeroed onto the rare earths, critical minerals. The deal with Ukraine, remember the $500 billion deal, which Zelensky got a scolding in the White House, but later on has been converted. So he's tied up with Ukraine. He's tied up with Australia. The Australian Prime Minister was there, about an $8 billion some supply chain. Now, Central Asia, virtually, I would not say unexploited so far, but yes, virtually untapped so far, is a huge resource. And it is but logical that Trump's, eyes would have zeroed down to this region. And obviously the reason was the annual C5+1 meeting. It is an annual meeting wherein the C5, that is the Central Asia 5, plus the US meet since 2015. It was at the foreign ministers level initially. In 2023 is the first time that Biden held a leaders level meeting at or on the sidelines of the UN summit in 2023. So now the annual event was due, so Trump suddenly would have found a focus and an interest if he were to sit down with the microscope and see, what all these nations would bring. And they have been, yes, and all of them, if you see, you played their remarks, all of them are looking to build relations with the United States also, partly in a way to hedge also, because they are sandwiched between Russian influence and Chinese influence. So it gives them, a hedge or a triangulation kind of a strategy. You heard what the president of Kazakhstan said, that, amongst other things, that Mr. President, you've been sent from the heavens. Okay. The Uzbek president said that you're the president of peace. The Tajik president said, we wish you again as president of peace and invite you, etc. Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan. So all of these nations, I think, are very much looking forward and ahead to build deeper relations with the United States. And on the other hand, it fits Trump's objective also to, tap these nations for critical and rare earth materials and oil and gas also. Yes. I mean, I've lived in this area. I've lived in Kazakhstan, I've lived in Tajikistan, I've done business in Turkmenistan. So these are rich countries, and now they're buying also. Trump has been citing, Uzbekistan purchased $8 billion of Boeing aircrafts. It has placed an order. Kazakhstan has placed an order of around $4 billion for locomotives. And Trump has been saying that it is the largest railroad export order ever. You know, so that is also going on in addition to the supply chains.
Indeed, sir, requesting you to stay on with us. There are some other very critical developments that have taken place at this particular conference. In fact, following the larger Central Asian leaders meeting with Trump, other new developments have come to light. President Trump has announced that the United States and Uzbekistan have in fact finalized a trade and economic agreement. Under the deal, Uzbekistan plans to invest $35 billion in U.S. sectors over the next 3 years and more than $100 billion over the next decade. Separately, Trump has also described a great call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu amid reports that Kazakhstan is set to join the Abraham Accords. In a post on Truth Social, Trump has stated that Kazakhstan would be the first country of his second term to enter the U.S. brokered peace framework, with a signing ceremony expected soon. The White House has not yet released a full readout of the call, but U.S. officials have confirmed that Kazakhstan is poised to normalize relations with Israel under the accord. Listen in to what Trump has stated.
This evening, I'm also delighted to report that Kazakhstan has officially agreed, and that's official now, as of about 15 minutes ago. A tremendous country with a tremendous leader has officially joined the Abraham Accords.
So with us on the broadcast is Mr. Robinder Sachdev. This is another interesting development. We do know that Kazakhstan is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country, but about 70%, 69.3% to be very specific, of its citizens are followers of Islam. Then how significant is the entry of Kazakhstan into the Abraham Accords, and does this then set the tone for other Central Asian countries and countries in the Middle East to follow suit?
It could. I mean, yeah, sure, Islam, Kazakhstan is dominantly Islamic, but, you know, the version of Islam which is there in Central Asian countries is not, I mean, it's quite different in a sense, because, you know, over 90 years, there was no religion supposed to be in the Soviet Union, right? So religion was kept aside and communism was there. So the version of Islam which is there in these countries is a very moderate version. Sure, there are elements of security and extremism also in every way, but aside. The reason it is important, one, it's symbolic. Kazakhstan already had diplomatic relations with Israel. But one more player in this mix becomes the United Arab Emirates. You see, in the Abraham Accords, Israel, UAE, Bahrain, etc. Now, the UAE has deep or growing relations in the Central Asian countries. UAE and the Arabs have been have been building up their relations out there. So what it does for Kazakhstan is that it brings it closer to UAE also, okay, which has funds to invest, right? And of course with Israel, and it kind of gets it in the loop of these countries. So it is definitely, on the one hand it's symbolic, on the other hand it creates a framework which is advantageous to Kazakhstan in terms of building its, outward linkages other than Russia and China.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other updates at this time from the business fair. Tesla shareholders have approved CEO Elon Musk's nearly $1 trillion pay plan, with 75% of voting shares in favor. The package, split into 12 tranches, links payouts to ambitious market capitalization, profit, vehicle delivery, full self-driving subscriptions and robo-production targets over the next decade. Musk's ownership would in fact rise from 13% to 25%, giving him increased voting power as well. The first tranche is tied to a $2 trillion market cap, with later payouts requiring Tesla to reach $8.5 trillion. Operational milestones include 20 million vehicle deliveries, 10 million FSD subscriptions, 1 million humanoid robots, and 1 million commercial robotaxis. Musk claims that Optimus robots could eliminate poverty and transform healthcare, though none are on the market yet. Even partial achievement of targets could earn Musk over $50 billion. The plan allows payouts in covered events like disasters or legal changes and imposes no restrictions on Musk's political activities or the time spent at Tesla. The approval comes after a court ruling that Musk's 2018 pay plan was improperly granted and must be rescinded, a matter now under appeal. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Robinder Sachdev. This is, of course, an unprecedented compensation package which is tied to long-term performance targets. Some might argue that these targets are quite ambitious as well, including the 2 trillion market cap and later payouts requiring Tesla to reach 8.5 trillion market capitalization as well. The humanoid robots reaching 1 million in production, whereas they're not on the market as of now. Do you think these goals are realistic at the outset? And I also wanted to understand from you, what are the risks that are there with this particular plan?
Sure. There could be risks, no doubt, and it is a challenging plan. But stepping back, the key thing to observe from this pay package is that Tesla is pivoting away from electric vehicles. I mean, it's there very much in, the electric vehicles, cars sold, right? The target is 20 million cars on the road for the first, milestone. As of now, Tesla has, I think, around 8 to 9 million cars on the road. So 11 million more cars. That means 20 million cars on the road, 2 trillion market cap. Right now is 1.5 trillion. So that is the first tranche target out there. But the key thing to notice is that the growth that they are looking and pushing for is in the robos, is in the robo taxis, those segments. So Tesla is, if not moving away, or Tesla sees its future as, let's put it this way, Tesla sees its future as not only a car company, but a platform sure of robotics and mobility. So that's there. Now the challenges which are there, certainly the challenges are there. I mean, if you were to look 1.5 trillion today and a 10-year target, supposedly, let's say 8.5 trillion, that means around 6 times market value enhancement in 10 years. So any investment, which goes up 6 times in 10 years is a huge return, I would say, right, in a big picture. The challenges are sure, regulatory challenges could be there. I mean, much of the robo-taxis or how robos, not only in the US or in other countries, work or are compliant or standards and all. But I think that they are obviously assuming. So regulatory challenge is one. And then definitely, yes, market acceptance and all. But the way Tesla has been going, the way their products are, it could, if not reach all of those targets, could reach probably substantially those targets. And Tesla then would be becoming something like, an Apple, or let's say a Foxconn, or a TSMC, sorry. So Tesla is heading towards that as a company, perhaps.
All right, sir. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time and, of course, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. But viewers, due to paucity of time, we must wrap up this bulletin here. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.